All right, and welcome to episode 26 of the GrowCast Show. Today we're going to do something a little bit more casual. We're going to go a little bit back and forth, not like the usual episodes that I have, because today with me I have somebody whose story is really amazing. I got totally inspired to the next level when I heard his story and what he's been through, and I really wanted to bring this story to all of you here today. So today with me I have Bamm Hardie, and he is the founder of Bamm Media. Bamm, how are you feeling today, my man?
I'm okay. I'm a bit tired from the few days of gym, but yeah, I think I'm able to master my times and my rest time nowadays. So I'm feeling okay. I'm feeling good.
Very nice. And I know, you shared with me your story right from the very start. I know you've had your ups with the F&B that you had as well. I know you had your downs with some parts as well. But maybe we go right to the very origin. Can we go a little bit right back to the origin? Origin means Bamm Hardie. You've got such an interesting name. So are you Singaporean? Are you Malaysian? What are you?
Okay, I'm Singaporean, born and bred Singaporean. But I think a lot of people think that I either look like I'm Filipino or sometimes even Myanmar. I think it depends on the weather or the days. but yeah, I'm Singaporean. And taxi drivers will guess whether I'm Malay, Chinese, or Indian.
Yeah.
But I don't know how I can look the three. But yeah, I usually tell them, no, I'm Eurasian.
Okay.
I'm Eurasian. Yeah.
So you are Eurasian. So which part of Europe?
England. So my great grandfather is from England.
Alrighty.
My grandfather still looks Ang Mo.
He's still around?
No, he passed on. He passed on when I was in P5.
Then how does he still look Ang Mo?
I have no idea.
So when he was around, he still looked Ang Mo.
Yes.
Okay, I'm glad he still doesn't look Ang Mo now.
Yeah, he still looks like an Ang Mo guy, but not like 100% Ang Mo. But he does look Ang Mo. And he was a violinist. He used to play the violin.
Wow.
I never heard him play, but yeah, he used to play the violin. My mom told me. Yeah.
Okay. How was life for you growing up as, an Eurasian kid here in Singapore? How was life? How was your growing up days? Were you close to your parents? Were you close to mom, dad? Which one were you closer to?
Okay, I like that question because I want to share a little bit more. For a start, my parents got divorced when I was just one year old, and my mom was a single mom. I have two other siblings who are older than me, so I'm the youngest. I'm the baby of the family, and because of that, my mom had to slug it out to support us. And it's very interesting because I would hardly see her because she works in sales. So she would leave at about 9, then she would come back after 10. So she would do that for many years. And I was in primary school. I was a young kid. I had to as a young kid, how we grow up. We want to have fun. We study or we don't study. Sometimes we're playful, and not having any parents around. Oh, there's so much freedom there. So I was a playful kid. Not very good with my schoolwork, but I always had this a different. I would say I have a different kind of thinking than a normal person, and I've sometimes get myself into a little bit of trouble. But I feel that that that's part of growing up. And my siblings are much older than me. They my brother is 9 years my senior, and my sister is 6 years my senior. And my sister would be busy going to school, and my brother, who is much older, he would at 19 he started his first job. But he's a hard worker. Yeah, he's a hardworking guy. I think we follow our father's roots. I think my dad, knowing him, not as much as I wish I knew him, because he remarried as well and had a family in Singapore before he retired in Malaysia.
But you never had the see your dad on the weekends or stuff like that. Not really. He didn't keep in touch much.
Yeah, so for many years I didn't do that until my mom felt a bit of a pinch that we were growing up and she needed more funds to support us. Mm-hmm. So one day she sat me down and said, "Bamm, why don't you go and visit your father and ask him for to help you, maybe with your school books or some school money." So when I was in primary 5, I think onwards, I started to visit him like once a year. And of course, that's not a strategy for relationships. And I didn't know better anyway. So I just went to visit him. I would stay there, his house in the east side. My mom lives on the west side. So I would travel all the way to the east side to stay with him maybe 2-3 nights for the reason and the intention to ask him for school money.
Did he give it though?
Sometimes he would, but he was an engineer and he was always always busy working. I don't blame him because he would come in after work and he would go back for overtime. So that conversation and relationship could not be built because he was always in and out. And I was afraid to ask him because my mom would tell me scary stories of him being a little bit hands-on, a bit I wouldn't say very aggressive, but he's an hands-on guy when they were married before. So hearing all those stories for me, like, oh, it's so frightening to go and see a man that I hardly know and ask him for money, So, but on the last day, I always forced myself to just throw that question because I had very little time left. So the last day I would say, Dad, can I have this amount of money for my school books? And he would just casually say, okay, I'll see what I have, or you can ask your stepmother. And then he would just go off to work. So then I had to sit down and ask my stepmother. And I would go back with, sometimes if I'm lucky, I'll go back with $100. I would ask for $200 for school books and uniform. I will go back with either $100. So some days I will go back with $6. Some days $50. And what can I say? I just have to take it, right? Take it, go home and tell my mom, say, that's the best I can do and this is all I have. And then she would say, it's okay, you have some, so yeah. But what I want to share also is and back in the days, I think when we were younger, I guess there's no age category for part-time jobs. So I believe, and if I can recall, I think since secondary 1, every school holiday I would work. Every June holidays, I would take a part-time job. And every end of the year, school holidays, I would take a part-time job. And I never stopped.
What were you working as when you were in secondary 1?
I think I got hired by a supermarket to price tag their products in the supermarket. I did that for about a month.
How much were they paying at that point of time?
I think that time, every 2 weeks, they would pay $200.
Okay, that's not too bad.
And what I did was, when I got my salary, I didn't keep it. I bought stuff for my family. I bought stuff for my mom. I remember I bought my elder sister a Mickey Mouse t-shirt. I still remember that. I gave my mom some money and then I bought a gift for my brother as well. Then I had nothing left.
Okay, and
so
then
I
you
spent
just
it
go back
all
to work again?
Then I'll go back to work again, yeah. So I always feel like I want to give back somehow. But yeah, the work thing wasn't very challenging for me. It was the end goal that I looked at. And the end goal was because I keep seeing my mother struggling all by herself. And because of that, I felt like I had an obligation to do. And the least I can do is, give as much as I can back to her. I didn't like the feeling of seeing my mom struggle. Yeah. So that's the reason why I pushed myself and just did it. Like the brand Nike, they always say just do it. So I just did it.
So obviously a very rough childhood, a very rough start that you had as well. How do you feel that transpired in your relationships? Because mom and dad were not together since you were 1. So mom raised you up, you go to dad, like what you mentioned as well. How did that transpire for you in your own personal relationships? What about how did you get married? Did you get married? How was your relationships like?
Yeah, so I did get married twice. So in my 2 marriages, the first one, I got married pretty young. I think I was around 25, so very young. Just came back from Singapore. I was staying in Indonesia for about 2 years, working there. Then when I came back to Singapore, met someone, and then after dating for a while, we decided to get married, and I have a son with her. So the relationship was very interesting, I would say, because my goal was very clear. My goal was since being a father and a husband, is to go out there and do the best I can, to go out there and, support my family. But on the other hand, my ex-wife wasn't very supportive, I would say, emotionally, because she had a different mindset. She was quite a hot-tempered person, and she came from a rough background as well. So regardless of what she went through in the past, I was part of her agony, and she would be very quick to get angry. And then for me as a young man as well, being very stressful and having to pay bills for the house and all that.
How old was she? So you were 25, she was?
I believe she was about a couple of years younger, maybe 22.
All right.
She was about 22.
But she was hot-tempered, like you said.
She was very hot-tempered. She could flare from an argument to being vulgar to being physical.
Okay.
And we're talking about slapping, we're talking about scratching, we're talking about things like even, let's say I try to dissolve the argument by just going into our room and locking the door, because I had a morning shift the next day for work in the gym. And she would take a knife and she would literally try to pry the door open while saying words like, if I ever get a chance to get in there, I will kill you. And that was many years ago.
And how did she cool down then? I mean, it sounds a little bit like the anger. It's not the anger issue, so it sounds obviously like physical abuse. So
Yeah.
how did you cool her down, or how did she calm down? And when she calmed down, was she more open to it? Did she apologize?
She never apologized, but the two things that I remembered how she actually calmed down was, number one, if she gets really tired and she's out of gas, she would just stop. Second is when we are separated, either I'm in the room, with myself not being there, or we distance ourselves at home. And that's the part where if I don't go back and forth with her in terms of argument, that will simmer down the situation and she will calm down. Yeah.
But how did you feel? I mean, the fact that I'm sure you did you know about this trait before you got married, or only after you got married?
Well, it was all bliss during the dating scene.
Yeah.
There were arguments, but they were not so physical. There are some instances that happened before we were married, but only when we are together almost every day. And perhaps her having a child also made that change.
She became calmer after you had the child.
Actually, it got worse.
It got worse. Huh?
Yeah.
I mean, I can only imagine, because a child usually brings out, extremes emotions.
Yeah,
in both.
it can be both
parties,
ways. Yeah, I
both
guess.
parties, right? You've been in obviously a physical, verbal, abusive relationship as well. What advice would you give to somebody who is going through abusive relationship, whether it's physical, whether it's emotional?
I think one of the most frightening experiences I've been through is, when you have a situation like this, usually they will try to solve it on their own internally, right, in-house. But to be honest, if they really cannot solve a problem like that, they should really speak to someone. And it could be someone from family, it could be someone professionally as well. But don't hold back from trying to get someone to hear you out, and someone you trust as well. So, but if situations don't change, something needs to be done. Cannot be left alone. It could get worse.
So that was the situation. You said you've been married twice, right? So that was your first wife when you were 25.
Yeah.
What happened the second time?
So after the divorce, I could visit my son every Sunday, and we were doing that for a while, and that was good until she found out that my life was getting more and more comfortable. And probably my son came home to tell her that he was having a lot of fun. We took him out to places and driving him around and all that. So after that, after a couple of months, he suddenly could not see me anymore, because he was either busy with something and I couldn't control that because it was under her custody. But I enjoyed seeing my son every Sunday. It's for a dad to see his son from a young kid. I was hoping that I could see him grow over time and having a part of my life into his life by nurturing him in some ways and to the best of my ability. Because having a son to me is my motivation, right? You have someone there, it's your responsibility. He's there physically and you can't beat that emotion. But there was a disconnection because she cut us out from that relationship. And I felt that it was the reason why it became worse during the divorce, if you don't mind me sharing as well. Before the divorce, during our marriage, was because we had some fights that she probably did not forget. And to me, it felt like she was starting to get revengeful and she was trying to get back at me in the marriage, during the marriage. And we had a house, about a place. And it just, I promised myself not to get a divorce because I didn't want to go through what my parents did. But circumstances were not in my favor and the situation didn't get any better. So instead of me becoming like her and making matters worse, I decided to move out to completely simmer down the whole situation. And I guess that helped in a way to save us from more, I would say, violence. But it didn't help the marriage. Of course, after a while, we got divorced. And I stayed single for quite a number of years. I focused on my work and my career.
Were you single for?
I think about four to 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah. Then I met someone else and, after a year of dating, decided to get married. But this time, this ex-wife of mine was much older than me. She was 7 years my senior.
Older than you, okay.
Yeah,
And how
much
old were
more
you?
mature.
You were probably 30?
Yeah, probably about 30-ish, young.
Okay.
Yeah, early 30s perhaps. Yeah. So I don't know. I always feel like a part of me is empty in some way, that I need someone else in my life to complete me. But to be honest, I always had this ego. After the many years in the fitness industry, I was pretty known in the fitness industry back then, and I started off creating programs that were much earlier than, I adopted many new programs in Singapore that many other fitness experts didn't, right? No circuit training concepts were created back then, and in-house as well for officers. So I felt that having that little success in me was a great achievement, although nothing compared to the bigger boys. But I always felt that with that sort of achievement, I had a little bit of ego. And that was a problem that I felt that was part of the problem I went through the different relationships.
How did the success end up being a problem for you? How did the success end up affecting the relationship?
I think the ego became pride, and the pride became something that I felt that I was very defensive about. Going through a child, growing up with a single mom. I think for me, I wasn't ready to fight for family. I was just a young boy. So for me to having to clean the house and stepping up to always help my mom, I probably built up that pride and ego along the way. So anything else that would kind of rock my ego would make me very defensive. And that's the reason why sometimes I get a little bit, I would get angry as well and defensive. And that's probably one of the reasons why it got a little bit disruptive when it comes to relationships. Yeah. And when I reflected myself back many years later, I felt that, if I were to just had less ego in my life, I think, relationships would have stayed, and, a lot more could have been built, even with family, even with friends, etc. Yeah. So I guess the ego played a part.
You were saying a bit about the second time you got your second wife, right? So how did ego play a part in your second marriage?
That led us to break up.
How did ego play a part in your second marriage that led you to divorce?
Okay, so my ex-wife was an ex-housewife, right? And she was never a business woman. She was a housewife. And I inspired her to start a cafe. So it started off with her making me one of the best salads and the best homemade dressings I ever had. And the first question I asked her was, you must sell this. And she was like, what do you mean sell this? I said, you should do something with this. This is something I've never tried before. It's amazing. And I've never tried, salads come with Thousand Islands, salads come with, nowadays it's more robust, but back then it was, very limited. So she made this dressing that was unbelievable. So in my mind, I was like, rather than just staying and doing nothing, start a business. So I wanted her I had corporate companies that were under my belt during my fitness days. And I said, why don't we come in and educate them? So we have the fitness element, now we have the nutrition element. We come in and do Jamie Oliver style. We will teach people how to prepare their own healthy meals for work and for home, and then we will pack up and leave. So very minimal logistics. But she told me she wanted to start a cafe. She wanted to meet people, cook, serve people. And I said, okay, let's see what I can do. So there was one condominium in Singapore that I had a few clients at. And one day when I left the gym, there was a small little cafe on the side that was boarded up. So I asked my client, I said, so is this cafe operational? She said, yeah, they're selling burgers and all that. But, she told me about the issues they were going through and all that. So they said, yeah, if you're interested, I said, I might be interested in, taking up this space if the rent is reasonable. So she said, yeah, here's the email address and, I'll link you up and see what happens, And one free meal for their condo management and 2 emails later, which was like a month later, we were actually rejected the first time because they wanted to keep that burger joint. But a month later, they said, maybe you have a chance. So one thing led to another. We opened up a cafe there. So my ex-wife was there, set up the whole place with a very tight budget. But, it did very well. And for me, being a child with nothing, when my mom was at home, telling, she would cook a meal before she would leave for work. And she said, that's all I have. You have to share it among you 3. And I was the biggest eater. I was a pig of the family. I was a big eater. I still am. So I would sometimes overeat a portion of that meal, and I would be smashed by my mom. My mom would come back and like discipline me and say, you ate too much, now your siblings have no food to eat. So for me, coming back forward to that, setting up a cafe for my ex-wife and being able to juggle a few things from having nothing, for me, that built up a bit of an ego in me, the pride. Like I came from nothing. Now I have a cafe on my own, and I still have my fitness business, my freelance business. And that made me very proud, compared to someone who wasn't out there to achieve anything.
I know also you went from the cafe inside the condo to an actual cafe in the Tanjong Pagar area, right?
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about that. Tell us a bit more about the cafe, because I know it was quite a popular cafe at one point of time.
Okay. So another interesting story to share. So we had this first cafe in a condo, and we stayed there for about 3.5 years. My ex-wife was always there to manage everything because I was still doing fitness. So we in and out. I was in and out as and when I could help her, especially on the weekends. I would just help her out. And I was kicked out from the cafe a few times because of my temper. I felt like I was a bit of Gordon Ramsay at the time, which wasn't helpful. She would kick me out. But our arguments are very subtle. We will settle it within the day, so that's good. From this cafe, 3.5 years later, my uncle came up to us and said, hey, why don't you go commercial? Why don't you come out from the private scene? Because we were not allowed to invite outsiders into the condominium. It was a condo cafe, and the management was very strict. And, we had a few, 1 or 2 residents that would always complain to management about us, even though they were unreasonable complaints. So we felt a bit of tension. We felt like, maybe we should go out somewhere and see how it goes. My uncle came by someday and said, hey, there's a place on the east side that's renting out cheap. Do you want to give it a shot? So we actually made quite a quick decision. And I looked at my ex, and she looked at me and said, I said, this is a chance to go commercial and we could probably make even more. And she said, okay, let's give it a shot. So we closed down that cafe, literally with a very short notice, took all our stuff to that new place and set ourselves up, and we had a shock of our lives. We got shut down 42 days later in this place on the east side because the management that was renting that whole space was going bankrupt, and we didn't know that.
Where was this place?
Simpang Bedok.
Okay.
And we were told a beautiful story that you have Changi Business Park where you can sell your salads, blah blah blah. Nobody else does this here. Your concept is unique.
So when after the 42 days when it got shut down, you moved to another one, or was that the end of the?
So after that 42 days of we were shut down in 42 days, right? Yeah, I would say. And I was singing. They had nights where we had singing nights, and I was singing with there's some ex-Singapore band singers. They were really good, and band players. So I would join them to sing to promote my shop. And I did a lot of things as well in between. So when we were shut down, we took a break because back then we took a $10,000 loan from an Australian friend, which we paid him back already. We took that loan from him, and 42 days later, we got cut off, and we were bringing all our stuff back home. We had to sit down and ask ourselves what next. And what I didn't want to do was to get a full-time job. I wasn't comfortable with that, I grew up not listening to people, so it's very difficult for me to, listen to a boss. So I told her, I said, why don't we try something else and market ourselves? And then when we did that a little bit, we suddenly got private clients. So what we did was we operated from our home kitchen. We started juice fasting for women. We started macro meals. We started some very customized meals for people who insisted that they wanted to eat that way. So we were the only few in Singapore that could do that. And we did that. We did that from a nice kitchen back in our home, and we delivered. So we were driving, we delivered the foods every day, and we lasted for a whole year until a couple from England came to us and said, we heard about you. Can we have a chat? So that chat led from one thing to another, and I didn't want to be part of the business because I was trying to get back into the fitness industry, but my ex-wife needed my help. She wasn't really good in operations, in like setting up, etc. But she was really good in, she taught me a lot about food, good healthy food, right? And yeah, we set up this place near Telok Ayer area, Robinson Road, near Buntat Street, and we had this partnership, and I decided to stay about a year before we call it quits. Yeah, so it was like a bit of a handover from one business to another. But what I wasn't happy about in the bigger business was we couldn't keep our name. We were called Food Rebels, and the name was changed with this new business. And what made it worse was our partners, which we heard through other people, customers, said that the business, we were just chefs, and the business and the concept belonged to them, and that, I guess, created that friction.
You guys are the
we were the recipe
to you, right?
Yeah, the whole recipe belonged to us. Everything, from the food all the way to the drinks.
So obviously there was obviously going to be some friction over there as well.
And I guess communication problems and all that.
Okay, so you've had your fair share of the ups and the downs as well, and both in the good and the bad as well. I don't think that one episode is enough. I probably need to get you in for another episode, so we can go deeper in that as well. But maybe Bamm, if I just want to end off with one question, if there was one piece of advice you would give to anybody who is going through a tough time, going through failure, going through a challenging time, right? What piece of advice would you give somebody who is facing failure consistently?
What I personally learned from my own experience is, and this is true, never to give up. As long as you wake up in the next morning and you're still breathing, you still have another chance to do something different with your life. Besides that, trusting in the ultimate power, and knowing that someone is looking over you actually helps. From all my experiences, I felt that, and there are many other factors as well. It's who you hang out with. It's your environment. It's what you listen to, what you watch, what are the intentions you want to do for yourself, what are your goals, your plans. All that come into play as well. Those are factors that will affect people well, or it could be positive or it could be negative. It depends on decisions. And I always tell people as well, what you decide now or what you decide today or tomorrow will affect everything else that comes next. So if I were to condense that in a short advice, I think these are the little things that I would advise people to take note of.
Yeah. Nice. I'm looking forward to another episode with Bamm from Bamm Media. He's someone that you will be seeing a lot more of on the GrowCast Show as well. Bamm, thank you so much for your time. And I know why he's a little bit tired, because today was a last minute thing, but I'm so glad that you turned up. How do you feel?
I feel that, I'm glad I have someone like Vicky who's around to move me. And like, all the great successful people out there, they always say you need a mentor, right? You need people to move you from behind, push you, to motivate you. So you can't do everything yourself. You need someone to do that for you. So I'm great. I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad you moved me.
Very nice. That's what I like to do, and that's what the Better Normal movement is all about. And that was GrowCast Show episode number 26. I'll see you all real soon for the next few episodes coming out. I'm down with the throat, so the next few episodes might not be me, but look forward to some new stuff coming out. See you all real soon. Cheers, take care, and bye-bye. See you, Bamm. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
See you.